Vladimir Omelyan joins us from Kiev, and he is currently on the front line fighting Russian troops.
We believe that the world should be ruled by democracies.
I was interviewing you on television a couple of weeks back.
That's right.
And you said, if you really want to understand Jerusalem, why don't you come here and see it?
And you came.
Here I am. Mass shooting after mass shooting after mass shooting. Why this cannot be fixed?
There are 425 million guns in the United States, which is more than the population.
The problem here is Trump has been able to make the argument that this is a political prosecution and that he's being singled out unfairly.
Defend our nation.
You are saying we could have a cure for cancer.
We'll have treatments for many cancers in this decade, and they're going to come from India.
Downside is that it could potentially wipe us out. But let's start with the upside first.
The upsides are absolutely enormous. The potential uses of this are almost unlimited.
I only discovered auto-GPTs about a week ago and started writing about them. And after I started writing about them, Jeff Bezos followed me on Twitter, and all kinds of crazy amounts of people have been contacting us.
The show where we get you the week's biggest stories from around this world.
What happens in the world and its nations?
South Africa, Omega Fund.
In Samarkand, Uzbekistan.
Reporting from New York for WION.
Creates ripples across oceans.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Here's a look at what's lined up for you on the show tonight. Our cover story tonight is about the G20 summit. The countdown is underway. India is ready to play host. The stage is set for the mega event. Chinese President Xi Jinping, though, is giving the summit a miss. We've been telling you about this, but that's just one part of the story. A story which has multiple layers, and they all signify a new Cold War, all thanks to China. But the question is, has China's new Cold War frozen the G20? And on Gravitas tonight, we look at the answer to that big question as we decode the meaning behind Xi Jinping's absence from the G20 summit and a look at Beijing's messaging. Also on the show for you tonight, India or Bharat? The big question continues to dominate headlines. We get you the bigger picture. Russia is covering combat jets with car tires. Russian bombers covered in car tires, satellite images showing Russia's new tactic. What's really brewing? What is the strategy? We tell you. Is there a hidden planet out there? Does it support life? we tell you what we know so far. Is getting a green card a dead dream? We tell you about the harrowing long wait for those eyeing the American dream. We also tell you about the great collapse that the UK is witnessing as fears rise over schools and hospitals at the risk of collapsing. Has China's new Cold War frozen G20? And I have good reason to ask that question. Indeed, I am forced to ask that question. For the Chinese have started playing spoilsport at the G20 on an industrial scale. Chinese Premier Li Qiang, you know him, he has been deputed to be at the G20 summit in New Delhi instead of the Chinese President Xi Jinping, because the great leader could not be bothered to participate in one of the most important conferences in the world. Currently, Li is in Indonesia. There too, he is filling in for Xi Jinping at the ASEAN summit. ASEAN stands for Association of Southeast Asian Nations, and most of these nations today are unhappy with China. Why is that? Many reasons, one of which has been created deliberately by Beijing. The imperial map of China, where Beijing has behaved like a greedy child in a candy store, grabbing all that it can. Li said, and I'm quoting, "At present, it's very important to oppose taking sides, block confrontation, and a new Cold War." Was Li lecturing ASEAN? Absolutely. But from what place, really? China professes it does not want a new Cold War, but simultaneously foments it. And G20 seems to be trapped between the hot war in Ukraine and the Cold War launched by China. These are the conflicts which will prevent agreement on a joint communique. Let me tell you a backstory. During a Sherpa-level engagement of the G20, China came up with a demand. It wants Beijing's One Belt, One Road project to be mentioned in the joint communique. The obvious question is, what has this road to debt trap anything to do with G20? If anything, OBOR, or China's road to destruction, is antithetic to G20's focus areas like sustainable development or anti-corruption. Corruption, you see, flows along China's Belt and Road. It inflates the cost of infrastructure projects in Malaysia, creates a corrupt elite along the CPEC, or the China-Pakistan economic corruption. But China insists that its One Belt, One Road travels well with the G20 theme, which, by the way, is one Earth, one family, one future. And India disagrees. You see, China is playing spoilsport. It says, if OBOR, cannot be a part of G20 communique, the summit's theme, Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, should not be either. The Chinese logic is, one, Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam is supposedly not synonymous with one Earth, one family, one future. And number two, by using a Sanskrit phrase, India sets a precedent, one where the host country can include its language and culture in the communique. Taking it too far, isn't it? China's pointless stretch reeks of Beijing's desperate attempt to do all it can to freeze G20 as part of its new Cold War plan. First, China refused to attend G20 meetings in Arunachal Pradesh and Kashmir, and then weeks before the G20 summit, China released a provocative map. Beijing said Premier Li Qiang will be representing China in New Delhi. In other words, Xi Jinping will not be traveling. And why is that? No answer there. But that's where we come in. We tell you what those in positions of power do not. Did you know China has not sent an ambassador to India for 10 months? 10 months. That's how long the position was empty. And mind you, this is very, very unusual. No country claiming to be in a working relationship with a neighbor keeps an ambassador's position empty for so long. and those who have knowledge of what's going on behind the scenes say that Beijing is in no hurry, which tells us that Xi Jinping's travel to New Delhi was never on the cards. Else, an ambassador would have been appointed first and dispatched to New Delhi to make the arrangements for Xi Jinping's visit. So why did Xi Jinping decide to skip the G20 summit? To avoid uncomfortable engagements, traveling to New Delhi in the middle of the standoff in Ladakh, or the map provocation. That's not the ideal place for Xi Jinping to be. And so he never planned to travel. Also, skipping G20 is not usual. It is one of the most important multilateral events in the calendar. And don't let anyone tell you that Xi Jinping's absence from the summit is a calendar issue, because it is not. You see, Xi Jinping had all the time to travel to the BRICS summit in South Africa. He had time for the Arab summit. He is not a leader who skips big engagements, just the uncomfortable ones, where he cannot be the prime focus or in a position to dictate terms and conditions, much like the G20 in India, a country where the summit will only return to after 20 long years. In all likelihood, Xi Jinping will not be China's president then. Also, it's not all roses and rainbows in China, of course. Reports say Xi Jinping has come under unprecedented attack from retired leaders of the Chinese Communist Party. Earlier this summer, there was a meeting at the seaside resort of Baidahe. In fact, this meeting has been happening every year since Xi Jinping became the CCP Secretary General. But this year was unlike any other, and reports say senior leaders reprimanded Xi Jinping. In fact, these party elders had met in separately before heading to Baidahe. And during that meeting, the leaders streamlined their agenda. And once there, they had a face-to-face meeting with Xi Jinping, where they told him that China cannot afford any more turmoil, political, economic, or social. And they said if the turmoil continues, the Communist Party will lose popularity in China. Xi Jinping was caught off guard by the criticism. The Chinese president later expressed his frustration to his closest aides. But has he done anything to put an end to the turmoil is the question. If anything, he is only rocking China's diplomatic boat harder, positioning China as an aggressive, unilateral and non-cooperative country. Today, China's foreign ministry told the world that Beijing stands, quote-unquote, ready to work with India to further improve and advance bilateral relations. But the truth could not be any more different. China has started a new Cold War, compartmentalized India as a rival, and decided to limit interaction as well as engagement. Will India now be called Bharat? Like we told you yesterday, India already is Bharat. Article 1 of the Constitution says, India, that is Bharat. And if anything changes now, it will just be the nomenclature. So how will India, Bharat, change things? First, formal communications. And we've seen two examples, by the way, in the last 2 days. First, it was the dinner invite to the G20 leaders. It said the President of Bharat. And now you have this document. It's a note on Prime Minister Modi's visit to Indonesia for the ASEAN summit. And as you can see, it says Prime Minister of Bharat. Not India, but Bharat. And reports say the identity cards of Indian officials at the upcoming G20 summit will also now say Bharat official. Formal communications is one. What else changes? In the United Nations, India's name is the Republic of India. Will it also have to be changed to Bharat? Let's just consider the example of Turkey. Remember, it changed its name last year, went from Turkey to Turkey. The United Nations officially recognized this name, and now at the UN, the country is called Turkey. It does not end there. If Bharat becomes the norm, it would trigger a chain reaction. For instance, what would happen to the domain names of Indian websites? Country code top-level domain consisting of 2 alphabets. Usually the first 2 letters of a country's name. They have historically helped identify a website's country of origin. .in is a top-level domain name for India. It signifies a website's association with India. And then it has subdomains reserved for different purposes. Gov.in is used for the government. MIL.in for the military. AC.in is used for academic institutions. EDU.in for educational institutes. Will the domain name for all of these top-level websites have to be changed? If yes, then what would it be? Many potential options for Bharat are already taken by other countries. .bh belongs to Bahrain. .br to Brazil. .bt is for Bhutan. .bd is Bangladesh. What do we have left for Bharat? And when we do come up with a new domain name, how long will it take for all the websites to adapt to that change? And will it be changed at all? Because it is easier said than done. Swaziland changed its name to Eswatini in the year 2018. It is 2023 and the country's top-level domain still remains .sz. What about Indian sports teams? What will they be called? Team India or Team Bharat? On your scoreboards, will it say IND or BHA? And here's another question. If Bharat does become the norm, would we expect corporates to follow suit? Would Amazon India become Amazon Bharat? What about Google India, Microsoft India, Apple India? Would the business giants named after India also follow suit? And what happens to Indian Oil, Indigo? What about educational institutes as well, like the Indian Institute of Technology, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, the Indian Institute of Science, the Indian Institute of Management? Let me tell you, the Indian Institute of Management was founded as a part of an act, and to change its name, legal amendments would be required. It is going to be equally complicated for the Indian Institute of Technology. Even when Madras was renamed as Chennai, IIT Madras still remained IIT Madras. And then there are the publications named after India. Would their names also become irrelevant? If we take the example of Indian aviation to date, Indian flights have VT on their tail number, VT standing for Victorian Territory. It is the nationality code that each aircraft registered in India is required to carry. It was set by Britain back in 1929. And India still has not changed it. Multiple petitions have been filed for the same. But the government has cited financial implications. Meaning when it comes to changing names, it's easier said than done. Is war the mother of all inventions? And while you ponder over that big question, let me show you what's really happening in Russia. The military has recently adopted an unconventional measure. It has started putting car tires over some of their attack aircraft, a move that's suspected to be an effort to shield these planes from Ukrainian drone attacks. The past 18 months of the Ukraine war have shed light on the use of new technology. It's a war for survival, and both sides want to win, of course. And so, as a result, we are witnessing the emergence of new and innovative ideas. And in the latest innovation, the Russians are adorning their strategic bombers with car tires, satellite images taken at the airbase in Russia, revealing the presence of 2 Tu-95 bombers with the tires. Now, here's a disclaimer here. We cannot independently verify the exact purpose of this, but experts suggesting that it serves a dual function. Firstly, it could be a strategy to provide an additional layer of defense. It could defend against drones, seeing as Ukrainians have increasingly started targeting Russian military airports. Secondly, it could be aimed at reducing the visibility of aircraft, particularly during nighttime operations. And some say that the tires could mitigate the impact of explosions, and that could prevent the fragmentation from piercing the aircraft. The effectiveness of this tactic is open for debate, but this is yet another example of how war necessitates innovation. You see, throughout human history, war has cast a long shadow over our civilization. Yet, amid the chaos and destruction, some of humanity's greatest inventions have emerged. Some wartime innovations have changed our everyday life. Some we continue to use even today. And one of the most iconic examples is the development of the atomic bomb during World War II. I'm sure you have watched the recently released Oppenheimer. The movie shows how the race to harness the power of atom was driven by the fear that Axis powers would achieve this destructive capability first. And this competition ultimately led to the Manhattan Project. It brought together brilliant scientists like Robert Oppenheimer and Enrico Fermi to unlock the secrets of nuclear fission. The devastating power of the atomic bomb would forever alter the course of history. And the resulting technology, a functioning nuclear bomb, led to the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and by extension, the Japanese surrender in World War II. But that same search for power thrust the world into the atomic age. It paved the way for peaceful applications of nuclear energy in the form of nuclear power plants and medical advancements. Controlled use of nuclear fission to release energy can be used for propulsion, heat, as well as generation of electricity. And today it is touted as a cleaner source of energy than traditional fossil fuels. Computers in the 1940s, people performed complex calculations by hand. But during World War II, the United States began to develop new machines to carry out calculations. It was meant for ballistics trajectories. And those who had been doing computations by hand took jobs programming these machines. Lieutenant Grace Hopper, later a US Navy Rear Admiral, also programmed the Mark I machine at Harvard University. And he went on to develop the first computer programming language. The internet during the Cold War, of course. The US Defense Department initiated the ARPANET project. It was meant to create a decentralized communication system, a system that could withstand a nuclear attack. And what was the result? The birth of the internet. Many of you watching this show right now are most probably connected to it. The internet, after all, has transformed the way we communicate since then. Work, accessing information. And war, by the way, not only led technological innovations, it also accelerated development of aerospace technology. The space race during the Cold War is a prime example. The rivalry between the US and the Soviet Union led to the creation of rockets, satellites, space exploration technologies. It would ultimately take humanity beyond Earth's atmosphere. What began as a race for military supremacy has now evolved into a peaceful pursuit of scientific knowledge. And there's plenty more. Radars, jet engines, penicillin, flu vaccines, sanitary napkins, the wristwatch, tea bags. They are all inventions of war. And we, of course, use them on a daily basis. While the origins of these inventions may be rooted in the need for military superiority, their adaptation for civilian purposes transformed society. And while war crippled the very same society and set back progress, it's an irony, one that's hard to explain. And if anything, war inventions highlight the complex relationship between conflict and progress. Yes, war can drive rapid innovation, but it does not mean that the world needs more wars, because we don't. Also, innovation does not stop during peacetime, of course. It's just that necessity is often the mother of invention. Astronomers spend lifetimes trying to search for Earth-like planets. Such planets would unlock the possibility of a habitable environment beyond planet Earth. Scientists' efforts are now turning fruitful as they have found evidence of a habitable planet in our solar system. The planet could be circling the Sun in an orbit beyond Neptune, and astronomers say it's a hidden planet in the Kuiper Belt. What is the Kuiper Belt? Is the hidden planet capable of harboring human lives? What essentials does a planet need to support human life? Our next report answering all of those questions for you.
Scientists may have found a new planet in our solar system. This new planet revolves around the Sun and lies beyond Neptune. Researchers say that the hidden planet could have a mass of nearly 1.5 to 3 times that of Earth. It would have an inclination of about 30 degrees, and its orbit could place it between 250 to 500 astronomical units from the Sun. So what is an astronomical unit? It is basically the mean distance from the center of the Earth to the center of the Sun. A single unit of AU is equal to 149.6 million kilometers. Why did it take scientists so long to find the hidden planet? What indicated its existence? It was the objects in the Kuiper Belt. The Kuiper Belt is a region beyond the orbit of Neptune. It has asteroids, space rocks, comets, and other small bodies made largely of ice. A new research in the Astronomical Journal says that scientists found that objects in the Kuiper Belt move in a peculiar way, which is indicative of a small planet among them. With deeper research, scientists found that some objects had an odd orbit, which suggests that they were being pulled by gravity of a cosmic entity. That was a major sign for scientists to suspect that there is a hidden planet. Does this hidden planet support life? Scientists haven't said anything. The planet is currently being studied. There are a few essentials that a planet needs to support life. Most giant exoplanets orbit their parent stars on elongated orbits. This results in varying climate and prevents the evolution of complex organisms and even the origin of life. The tilt of a planet's axis matters a lot. Let's take Mars, for example. Reports say that the huge change in its axial tilt angle could have resulted in the loss of its atmosphere. A habitable planet needs to be able to regulate its climate. Earth's plate tectonics and volcanism helps us live in a comfortable temperature. How it works is that carbon dioxide is brought into the atmosphere by volcanoes, but it gets washed away by rainstorms. Eventually, plate tectonics return the carbon dioxide into the Earth's lithosphere. That makes up the CO2 cycle, which acts like a thermostat. Now comes one of the most essentials, water. A planet should be able to hydrate us, but too much water can also pose a problem. Earth is a complex mixture of elements which help us survive. It's hard to say how long it will take before scientists find a similar planet that supports life. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
For some time now, Pakistan and Afghan Taliban are teetering on the brink of a crisis. The relationship, after all, between the longtime allies looks increasingly fraught. A string of attacks by militants against Pakistani forces and disputes over the 2,600-kilometer shared border have led to growing tensions, and this has now erupted into a full-blown exchange of fire at the main border crossing. Why the two sides exchanged fire is not clear. What is clear is the increasing tensions between the two neighbors, and what's at stake is the question. Let's just understand this. On Wednesday, Pakistan closed a key border crossing with Afghanistan because Afghan and Pakistani forces exchanged fire, and the Pakistani government and the military officials were reportedly in contact with Afghan leaders to defuse the tensions. Officials from both sides reportedly tried to find out what caused the clash and ways to prevent it in the future. And in the aftermath, dozens of trucks carrying perishable items, including vegetables and fruits, were waiting on both sides of the border for the reopening of the Torkham crossing, a vital trade route to Central Asian countries for Pakistan. But disputes linked to the border have been a bone of contention for decades. The Torkham border point is the main point of transit for travelers as well as goods between Pakistan and landlocked Afghanistan. The crossing has been closed several times in recent years. Torkham witnessed previous clashes in February, and the town remained closed for several days. The closure came after the two sides accused each other of trying to build new posts along the border. Thousands of trucks laden with goods stranded on each side of the border for days. The clashes had caused millions in losses to traders. Afghanistan does not recognize the border that runs through Pashtun heartland. They say that it dilutes the power of Afghanistan's largest ethnic group on both sides. Meanwhile, Pakistan has completed fencing along 97% of the border. It is fencing up to stop the cross-border attacks as well as smuggling. Pakistan also accuses the Afghan Taliban of providing sanctuaries to militants. Currently, Pakistani forces are carrying out intelligence-based operations against insurgency in the region. Militants often fire mortars to target Pakistani forces, and it has caused civilian casualties as well. Now, just keep in mind, the border closure comes 2 days after caretaker Pakistani Prime Minister Anwar ul-Haq Kakar said that the US military equipment left behind during the American withdrawal had fallen into militant hands. And this had made its way to the Pakistani Taliban or the TTP. Now, Kakar did not provide any proof to back his claim, but said that a coordinated approach was needed to tackle the situation. TTP, or the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, is currently waging a bloody insurgency against the Pakistani government. And since the fall of Afghanistan to Taliban, the Tehreek-e-Taliban has only emerged stronger, mounting a series of deadly attacks in Pakistan. The TTP's attacks have risen after the outfit unilaterally called off the ceasefire deal with the Pakistan government last year. But that's no secret. The TTP have released statements and video clips claiming that they possess weapons like guns with laser and thermal imaging systems. The weapons left behind when US troops withdraw, such as military aircraft, vehicles, firearms, ammunition, was taken over by the Taliban. And armed with these weapons, the TTP emerged as a new challenge for Pakistan, especially at a time of strained ties with Kabul. And these weapons have enhanced the fighting capabilities of the TTP. The caretaker Pakistan Prime Minister's comment came within days of a suicide bombing in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. The attack carried out by the TTP claimed the lives of 9 soldiers. The TTP's methods of attacks have improved with access to better weapons. Pakistan officials have told the Western media that the TTP either bought the equipment from the Afghan Taliban or was given it as an ally. Last month, 2 Pakistan policemen were killed in the TTP attack in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And earlier this year, in January, a TTP suicide bomber blew himself up at a mosque in Peshawar. 101 people lost their lives. Over 200 others were injured. The deceased largely included Pakistani cops. And overall, Pakistan witnessed 18 suicide attacks in the first 7 months of 2023, significantly more than last year. In 2022, there were 15 attacks. The Afghan Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan in 2021 emboldened the TTP, and the Taliban have made little effort to conceal their support for the TTP. Despite Pakistan's pleas, the Taliban remain unwilling to take meaningful action against the TTP. And so Pakistan's Twin Taliban Problem continues. And prior to Afghan Taliban's military takeover, Pakistan supported the group for years. They provided resources, safe havens, hoping that it will help garner favor. And 2 years later, the assumptions were proved to be incorrect. The Pakistan government did not find another alternative in the face of the mistrust. And so, given the rise in attacks and the tensions, the Pakistan government is unlikely to swiftly overcome the TTP threat in the end. It seems the decision to support the Taliban's rise to power in Afghanistan has come at a substantial cost for Pakistan. Are you an Indian waiting for your American dream to come true? Well, that could take a while, even more than your lifetime. Now, I don't mean to scare you, of course, but US green cards have hit a record backlog. Just have a look at this report. It was published by the American think tank Cato Institute, CATO. It says that employment-based green cards have reached a backlog of 1.8 million, which means about 1.8 million immigrants are waiting for their permanent resident card for the United States. About 1.1 million of them are from India, and this makes for 63% of the total people on the waiting list. Another nearly 250,000 are from China, accounting for 14% of the backlog. And the remaining 33% are from other countries. New applicants from India will have to wait their entire lives for a green card. There is a waiting period of over 134 years. 134 years. More than 400,000 will die before they ever get one. And during the waiting period, the immigrants are not eligible to work legally in the United States. They also cannot sponsor their parents for green cards. And you know what? Even getting to the point of entering this backlog takes an enormous amount of effort. The process starts when an employer files a petition for a worker. And if no green card is available, the petition is waitlisted until a spot opens up. And once that happens, the worker can file to adjust status to permanent residence. And then once again, the wait begins. And for many, it never ends. But why really is this happening? Why has legal immigration to the United States become nearly impossible? This is primarily because of tight green card caps for employer-sponsored immigrants. You see, no country can receive more than 7% of the green cards, which means only about 65,000 green cards are available each year for Indians. More than 1 million Indians are bearing the brunt of the broken system. Over half of the backlog is in the category. These green cards are for employees of US businesses with advanced degrees, and another 19% in the other category, the green cards there, for employees with at least bachelor's degrees. The category for special immigrants, accounting for 13% of the backlog. Another 6% for major investors, and the remaining 3% are other workers with jobs not requiring a college degree. You see, immigrants of every category are facing the same struggle. It's almost like America has no more space for legal immigrants. So much for calling itself a melting pot. the Biden administration recently changed how it implements the country limits. For the category Northern Triangle countries and Mexico will be likely seeing a significant increase in green cards. Other countries would have to pay the price. And even then, they would still face multi-decade waits. And then the United States wonders why it has an immigration crisis. Is this why so many immigrants take the illegal route? Is this why they cross borders, take boats, take donkey flights? Because moving legally to America has become next to impossible. Think about it. A waiting period of 134 years. It's nothing less than a life sentence. London Bridge is falling down. Don't worry, I'm not going to sing out the rhyme for you. But our next story does remind me of it. Are you confused? Let me break it down for you. The UK seems to be on the verge of falling apart, quite literally. You see, the economic situation was already in urgent need of repair there, but now so are its buildings. Hospitals in England have been told to be ready to evacuate their staff as well as the patients. Why, you ask? Because there is a risk of the buildings collapsing. I'm not making this up. In fact, this is a problem plaguing not just hospitals, but schools as well. Let me tell you all about this. Instructions have been issued to all 224 health trusts by NHS England. The trust officers have been told that they should familiarize themselves with a regional evacuation plan drawn up by the NHS in the east of England so that hospitals can implement it in the event that buildings that contain RAAC, start to crumble. What is RAAC, you wonder? Well, it lies at the center of this controversy. It's short for Reinforced Aerated Autoclaved Concrete, RAAC. It sounds pretty heavy and powerful, right? Well, the name is misleading to say the least. It's just a fancy term for a cheap and lightweight material. Just a quick backgrounder here. It was used in construction between the 1950s and the 1990s, but it was found that it has a lifespan of around 30 years. In other words, unsafe concrete, and it has been found in hospitals, courts, also schools. And now, according to the instruction that's been issued to the health trusts, a regional evacuation plan was created and tested in the east of England, and learnings from this exercise have been cascaded to the other regions. All trust boards have been recommended to ensure that they are familiar with the learning from this exercise and that they are being incorporated into standard business continuity planning as a matter of good practice. But the exercise is essential for those organizations with known RAAC, and should be done as a matter of priority if it has not already been completed. You see, the fear is palpable. It's shocking looking at the situation on the ground. Let me just give you a better idea about just how bad things really are at this point. One of the hospitals facing a huge issue with this material had to ban obese patients from having surgery in any of its operating theaters except a theater on the ground floor. You know why? Just in case their weight amplified the risk of the floors crumbling, cracking. Can you believe that? And it's a nightmare that has been playing on repeat, by the way. Basically, this material is being found in hundreds of buildings, amplifying fears that the structures could come crumbling down. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is under heavy pressure. Some have accused him of ignoring the repairs when he was serving as the UK's Chancellor. Sunak has stressed on the point that the threat is limited to just hundreds of schools and not thousands, while adding that 95% of those schools, he claims, will not be impacted by the crisis. But the Labour Party, of course, is not convinced, accusing the government of trying to limit their responsibility. But the fact of the matter is, this is a serious crisis. The UK has been unable to find a concrete solution to its concrete problem, as the fear of buildings collapsing continues to loom large. Our next story is on a disease known to affect mostly aged people. We are talking about cancer. Studies show an increase in diagnosis among younger people. Researchers say that red meat and alcohol are responsible for the global surge in cancer. And experts are pushing young people to have greater physical activity levels. But why is there a sudden surge in cancer cases among the young? Our next report telling you all that you need to know.
Cancer, which is often called a disease for the old, is now attacking young people around the world. For people under the age of 50, new cases of cancer rose by 79% between 1990 and 2019. The world witnessed 3.26 million new cases. Breast cancer made up the largest proportion of cases, which meant 13.7 people out of 100,000 suffered from the disease. Meanwhile, windpipe and prostate cancer are growing at the fastest rate, by 2.28% and 2.23% each year. The good news is that early onset liver cancer cases have fallen by 2.88% each year. The regions with the highest rate of early onset cancers are North America, Australasia, and Western Europe. Researchers predict that by 2030, early onset cancer cases will rise by 31%, and associated deaths will rise by 21%. So what led to the drastic increase? Studies show that a diet which is high in red meat, salt and alcohol is responsible for the global surge in cases since the 90s. But habits also define how your body functions. Unhealthy practices like not eating fruits and vegetables, which is quite common in youngsters, and smoking are key risk factors for the early onset of cancers. Experts have also termed some practices as contributory factors. They are physical inactivity, excess weight, and high blood sugar. You see, with a poor diet or unhealthy habits, the cells in our bodies slowly get damaged. Although this damage can be fixed by itself, sometimes it tends to build up and causes cells to grow uncontrollably. That results in cancer. As a person becomes old and the body slows down, the damaged cells take more time to heal, and thus there are more chances for the cells to turn into cancers. That's why cancer is called the disease of the older age. Scientists are still researching, and they say that it's still not fully clear what is driving the rise in early onset cancers, but exposure to risk factors in earlier life, better detection of cancer, and genetics might all play a part. It's not difficult to dodge cancer. Experts say that making simple changes like giving up smoking, limiting alcohol consumption, increasing physical activity, and following a healthy diet which is low in processed meat can easily help reduce the risk of developing the disease. Will fear of cancer encourage the young to live healthy? Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Fitness is the new luxury. And I say this after looking at Europe's stock market. It has made a drug company Europe's most valuable. It's no random drug company, by the way, but the makers of Wegovy. It's a weight loss drug. Wegovy, W-E-G-O-V-Y, was launched in the UK on Monday, and within 24 hours, the drug maker, Novo Nordisk, has become Europe's most valuable company. Today, it is worth 340 billion euros. Novo Nordisk is a Danish company, and today it is worth more than the Danish economy. Also more than LVMH, which was previously Europe's most valuable company. LVMH, Louis Vuitton, Moet, Hennessy, is the house that makes brands like Louis Vuitton. And these brands, for the longest time, have been synonymous with ultimate luxury. But it appears that times are changing, and the demand for the weight loss drug is more than the quest for luxury. I'm sure some of you are wondering what is so special about Wegovy. It is an appetite suppressant. It's mostly prescribed to people with obesity. The drug needs to be injected once a week. And studies show that if taken along with exercise and lifestyle changes, it can help reduce a patient's body weight by around 15%. Wegovy is already available in the US, Norway, Denmark, Germany, and now people in the UK are running to medical stores. We are not surprised. Who on the planet does not want to be fit? Today, more New Year resolutions involve fitness than getting one's hands on a Louis Vuitton. Today, every second person wants to lose weight, improve his or her BMI. And while it may look like our world is in the middle of a fitness revolution, will people go into gyms more than ever, taking subscription to one fitness program or the other, watching calories and counting steps? Fitness has never eluded this world more. Our world is becoming fatter, more obese, and unhealthy. It's estimated that over 2 billion people today are obese. Obesity is the largest contributor to poor health. And obesity numbers have tripled since the year 1975. Again, you should not be surprised. Have a look around you. Have a look at the growing intake of fast food. People are eating more junk, more fried food, sleeping less. People are a lot more stressed. And all of this adds up, adding to your weight. Today, sleep has become a luxury. Healthy food has become a luxury. A bowl of salad at a restaurant is likely to cost more than a burger at a roadside stall. Fruits are more expensive than hot dogs. Today, a balanced diet is a luxury. Health and fitness is a luxury, and it's no wonder shares of a drug maker are more in demand than the makers of Louis Vuitton. Something to think about. On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off, leaving you with Gravitas images. Thanks very much for watching.
India's global.
It's easy to tell you a flat story. It's easy to show you what's happening around the world. We do the difficult part.
This weapon has been banned, but the US, Ukraine, and Russia do not find the bombs problematic.
We also tell you why what's happening.
A new drug is making a difference in the fight against Alzheimer's. This medicine helps slow down a patient's cognitive decline.
We look beyond the text. We give you context.
Is China preparing for a war in the Himalayas? And tonight, we come to you with some proof.
Hypocrisy is stunning.
Do leaders mean what they say? Do they ever say what they mean? To find out how real news affects you, your decisions.
Just when Iran took one step in the right direction, its moral police is planning to drag it further back. And once again, the victim will be women.
Watch Gravitas.
Welcome and thanks for tuning in.
We don't impose our views.
Did India threaten to ban Twitter? Either that or Jack Dorsey is lying to you.
That is Gravitas. We let life breathe through our show. Gravitas, the informed show for an intelligent audience.
Hi, I'm Alison LaGrange and you're watching eClub. Here are the nominees for Achievement in Music.
People are totally wrong who keep telling me that, oh, you're a multitasker. I'm not.
Awards and fashion shows are in full swing.
Seeing a young, black man, directing a feature film, I saw myself in him.
Engage engage with us. Let us know what you'd like to see on the show and celebrities that you'd like us to feature.
What is the India story? It's the story of the world's biggest democracy.
We are developing the road infrastructure. In the end of 24, it will be equivalent to the road infrastructure of USA.
We have now entered the growth phase. And I believe that the growth rate in India is going to be exponential.
Two narratives of Indian story which need to be brought center stage.
Every week, the India story will bring the most incisive analysis, the most authoritative voices.
India will be a significant pole in the universe of AI going forward.
India is walking tall, India's stature is different, India's voice is being heard.
And the biggest newsmakers.
This is just a start. Tokyo, we won one bronze. Paris, we won a rocket. Good to see that, women cricket is getting more excited and everybody is looking up to that.
And these stories need to be told. And they are guided by the compass of their conscience.
From India for the world, the India Story, the show for the global citizen.
You don't know how to fix the holes in our ozone layer. You don't know how to bring the salmon back up a dead stream. You don't know how to bring back an animal now extinct. And you can't bring back the forest that once grew where there is now a desert.